Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Accurate number FC5001. This is a flush pole. This one is shown in a US14 finish, and that's what it looks like. Accurate is a manufacturer known, in my experience with them, people know them as having extraordinary, exceptional, practically one-of-a-kind custom capabilities. They shouldn't really be thought of only that, and in fact many people might just not realize they do custom stuff. That'd be hard to believe, as they have an entire catalog of standard equipment, which is, as an example, is the FC5001 that we see here. What you will also find synonymous with Accurate is exceptionally high quality. Back to the custom nature, they have entertained custom requests from me for absolutely obtuse items. I had a client who needed a wide throw hinge. Typically a wide throw hinge would be available maximum 8-inch wide. I've personally seen them in historic buildings that were probably 16-inch wide, 12-inch wide, very typical. The original state capitol building in Iowa, which is in Iowa City, is full of exceptionally wide throw hinges. The state capitol building of Texas has some incredibly ornate, detailed wide throw hinges. I needed a price of 10-inch tall and 20-inch wide. They happily quoted it. They were a fortune, but the client was able, while that order, because they were so expensive, the client, that did not convert into an order. But one custom requirement that did convert into an order, and this was many years ago, maybe about the year 2012 perhaps, client needed for an air traffic control tower, access to the tower in a foreign country. Client required a mortise lock, lever trim, regular mortise lock, except this mortise lock was going to require 2 keys to operate it. Think of a guard key and a renter key like you'd have in a safe deposit box, which I think is the function of how it actually worked. One key would unlock, which would then permit the other key to work, like in a safe deposit box, and access to the air traffic control tower literally required 2 keys, 2 separate individuals. Those locks, my cost on those were $5,000, something in that range. That converted into an order. There were 2 of them on the order. They were really, really cool to see how they did that. I don't know if I have any photographs on that, but I believe they extended the lock case and added a separate cylinder linkage so that it would operate like a safe deposit box. And I've referred to that. In a safe deposit box, you have the guard key. His key's got to go in and be turned, and the turning of that key will then remove the blockage to prevent the renter key to work. And I believe the function of this, rather than each key having the ability to unlock the latch, they don't. One is a guard key and one is a renter key. So very cool. Now, back to the FC5001. This is a gorgeous example of incredibly high-quality finish. This is a US14 that should really be called 618 because, or at least I believe it should be called that, because this will be made of solid brass, its faceplate, with a polished nickel plating. And polished nickel is, to a lot of people, going to be identical to polished chrome. It's not. Polished nickel seems to have a bit more of a color characteristic to it rather than polished chrome, which was more mirror-like. There's a bit more warmth in polished nickel when you view it, even though that is certainly subject to the viewer in terms of what it actually looks like. So the polished nickel is a plating over solid brass-based material, incredibly high workmanship on the back. This material is absolutely handmade, is just simply the bottom line. And why people are going to use this over something else that will certainly be less expensive and possibly, not necessarily, more readily available, is because you're looking for an absolute statement when it comes to your hardware. You're looking for a caliber of hardware. you're looking to have the hardware as handsome as the home itself, if not more so. The fact of the matter is, to put it into plain terms, if you're building a $4 million house, you're not using builder's quality material. While there are lots of people who make flush poles, you will be working with Accurate is not a boutique company, but in the sense that they make material that is highly customized, highly made to order, incredibly high quality. You're going to gravitate towards people like Accurate. This is a perfect example. Okay, you've got a piece of just probably brass on the back as well, hand screwed down to fill the cavity. Attaching that is going to be via the screws that you can get access to, which are indeed included, these combination screws that will work for a steel door, pardon me, a metal application or a wood application. Let's retrieve that lost screw. And so that's called the combination screw. It's a number 8 flat undercut head. Now, some dimensional properties of this item, and super simple to install. I wouldn't really want to do this with a hammer and chisel. I would use a router. I think the caliper and the router are the most important tools to a finish carpenter. First, let's use a less accurate tool. Overall width, they've got it at 2 1/4. My tape measure tells me 2 1/4. They've got 5 inch on the height. That's indeed correct. The opening of your pole itself, about 3 1/8 by about 1 3/16 inches. Let's get to the caliper now. The thickness of the faceplate, .101 thick. An overall thickness, including the body itself, 0.654. So therefore the depth is going to be 0.554, 553 maybe, 555, 0.557, let's say. So just heavy on 1/2 inch depth of the body. You're going to, of course, install this. I would use a router is the only way that I would go about doing it. I would make my preparation basically the size of this body, and I would only increase it in size by about 1/8 of an inch. Overall height of the body, about 3 9/16. Overall width, about 2 inch. You've got a radius here. Might be about a 3/8 radius would be my guess. Using that is might be a 1/2 inch radius. See if I can gauge that a little bit on the camera. Yeah, I'd say a 3/8 radius is what you're going to have there. You might make your prep tight enough so that you have very little movement, that you don't go back and route the corner. So a 3/8 radius, try a 3/4 inch diameter 2-flute carbide router bit. I would route that out. I wouldn't make it any bigger than necessary because those screws, you want it to have contact with your properly reinforced wood door, let's say, immediately. Going into particle board is really not an option for this sort of a situation, although it's certainly done. You don't have a lot of screw there. It's probably a number 8x1, right in that range. Before prepping this hardware, I would take an audit of the rest of the, and I would determine what a good top of door to center line of prep would be, and then what a good back set would be. I would audit the other doors to make sure that I had a proper and cohesive mounting height. You could have a long hallway, and you've got doors going down either side, and you could have a couple of pocket doors. You want that line of sight to be right down that hallway in that 1-point perspective in this case, or 2-point perspective. So sort that out. I would make, my template would always be a piece of 3/4 poplar, let's say, and I would prep my hole. I would get a couple of clamps. I'd clamp that on there. I would make the edge of the template the same as the edge of the door with the placement of where I would want my back set to be. Okay, so that I wasn't thinking about a back set. You could get even fancy and make it a long rectangular template so you can flush it to the bottom of the door so that your center line from, you know, the bottom of the door or the top down is always going to be consistent. The bottom of the door to the center of the prep for a 6.8, 7.0, 8.0, 9.0, a 50-foot tall door, it doesn't matter when you're measuring off the bottom. So you could eliminate the possibility of pulling a tape measure out even further. I would recommend that. If you're doing one or two of these, yeah, you might just clamp down a whole bunch of, you know, wood, you know, or make something up very quickly. But if you expect to do more than one, that hour that you'll spend really making a nice template or less is going to be well worth it. You can mark it, and then you'll never make another template like that again. Okay. Obviously, a recessed space in here to get your fingers into. These are not only used on sliding doors, which is what this is intended, well, commonly seen, pocket sliding or swinging doors, but swinging doors as well. You're going to put a flush pole like this onto a swinging door that might have pivots with a roller latch, very common application for this. Pocket doors, again, you know, very typical and common. The thickness of that face is only 100 thousandths, so your pocket doesn't really have to be too much larger, and it's going to be well within the margin of what a pocket frame structure would create anyway. Okay. Now this is available in lots of finishes, lots of them. Being accurate, I mean, they can plate anything you want. I have a list of those finishes available. It's, well, we'll rifle through them. US10 satin bronze, US10B oil rub bronze, US14 polished nickel, US15 satin nickel, US15A antique nickel, US19 black, US26 polished chrome, US26D satin chrome, US3 polished brass, US32 polished stainless, US32D satin stainless, US3NL, that's a polished brass with no lacquer, US4 satin brass, US5 antique brass. I'm sure that they can powder coat. There's not a lot of finishes left out of here. If you want a polished bronze, which is a beautiful color, in my opinion, they can certainly do that. If you want I can't really think of anything that they're missing just out of their standard offering that you might bump into. I think they've got it pretty well covered. So anyway, a beautiful piece of hardware. Now there is a link below this video to the document called product brochure. Before we get to that, you can see if you scroll down, cross-section dimensional properties of the item itself. Product brochure is going to give you an overview of flush poles available from Accurate, and you can see that they have more than one style. They get into some trim that's there that can be used on pocket door lock bodies. Very exquisite options of hardware that they sell. You might want to review that before you make a decision on your FC5001 part number. The C means concealed for the screws. The E, FE5001, would mean exposed. Concealed is by far more common. I don't know that you would necessarily want exposed fasteners, although someone may. A rule of thumb, we never really see many exposed when it comes to exposed versus concealed. It's a real gorgeous piece of equipment. If you have custom requests, Accurate is your company. They are not the only people who do utterly high-end material, but they very likely are the most prolific in the sense of market penetration. There are many other boutique manufacturers that will give you this caliber, certainly, but there are names that you may only bump into if you are an interior designer that focuses on this type of work. The name Accurate is synonymous with exceptionally high-quality material, high-quality, exceptionally high-quality fit and finish, an ability to make almost everything that I've ever asked them for. There was one item that they couldn't make. Not that they couldn't, but the quantity I needed wasn't going to justify the cost. I needed 10 to make it economic. We needed 80 to order. Exceptional people. I'm not sure if I'm on 3 or 4. And that's from the person who answers the phone all the way up to people that are in family ownership. Exceptional across the board. Absolutely will bend over backwards. And they have a client list and a project list that would certainly astound anyone. If you are anyone important, whether it be the White House or private industry, you probably have Accurate hardware in close proximity to you on a daily basis. I appreciate them for all that they do. Any questions on the FC5001 flush pole in a US14 or any finish whatsoever, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.